The call came while I was kneeling beside my old sedan with a flashlight between my teeth and engine oil on my wrist. It was a Tuesday night, a little after 9, the kind of night where the neighbors' windows glowed warm, sprinklers clicked in perfect rhythm, and every driveway on our street held something polished and expensive. Except mine. My car was 19 years old. The passenger door groaned when it opened. The paint had faded from midnight blue to something closer to tired gray. The left speaker buzzed whenever the bass hit too hard, and the air conditioner worked only when it felt respected. My wife hated that car. Ava called it embarrassing. She said it made us look poor. She said people in our neighborhood noticed. I told her people in our neighborhood noticed too much. That night I was replacing a cracked hose myself because the part cost $28 and the shop wanted $300. That was when my phone buzzed on the hood. Ava. I wiped my hand on a rag and answered. "Hey," I said, "you okay?" For 2 seconds, nobody spoke. Then a man laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a wrong number laugh, a comfortable, cruel laugh. "You really do answer fast," he said. "That's sad." I stood slowly. The garage light hummed overhead. "Who is this?" Another laugh. In the background, I heard music, ice clinking in a glass, and then Ava's voice, low and sharp. "Don't," she said. The man ignored her. "You know," he said, "she told me you were cheap, but I thought she was exaggerating." I looked at the screen again. It was definitely her phone. He was calling me from her phone. That was the moment the evening changed shape.